Hello guys and welcome back to the Cadry experience video, this time done with 3 different rotations and from my wizard's perspective. Before I get into the actual video, a few things to mention are that I did all of my rotations on daytime and I didn't loot anything manually from the ground. I let my pets loot whatever was on the ground and I tried to kill the monsters as fast as possible in order to see the maximum experience that I can make on each spot. For this particular test, it doesn't really matter what node level or pets I have, but I will also have those shown on the screen. To get this started, the first rotation is the exact one that I tested on my ranger. And from what you can see on the screen, I am also using 3 extra groups from the stairs. This may or may not be important to some people, but for example on my ranger, if I'm doing this rotation and I don't use those groups on the stairs, I sometimes run out of monsters after one rotation, or they are just not fully respawned yet. So if you're one of those people who can clear monsters really fast, you might want to include those groups as well. On my wizard I usually don't have this problem, but in order to test the exact same rotation as I did on my ranger, I will also be using those 3 extra groups. Now the video that is playing right now in the background is of course the first rotation, and these 2 screenshots are the starting point and ending point of my test. So if you want to see the buffs that I had, the time that I grinded and the experience difference, then please check the screenshots, because I always record my videos after I did the test, so I may have different buffs on the actual footage. Now for the part that actually has numbers, on this rotation I grinded exactly 28 minutes, and if I add up all of my experience buffs, then I had 124% experience at that time. So if I reduce all of that back to 100%, on this rotation I made 0.021% experience per minute. With this being the first actual test that I made on my wizard, I can't compare this yet to any other values, but I can say about this rotation that it is the best one at Cadry Ruins. At least in terms of experience, because in terms of money, this rotation only has 1 elite monster. So if you're here to grind for money, then this rotation probably isn't the most efficient one. Moving on to the second rotation, this one is a little bit odd and probably not that safe to grind, and that is because of 2 reasons. One of them is because half of the rotation is around that platform or circle, and their mobs are not exactly that dense. They are pretty spread from one another, and if you're one of those classes that can't aggro the monsters, then you're going to have a hard time to kill them. And the other reason is because on the other half of this rotation, one of the gatekeepers can spawn. So if you're unlucky and that gatekeeper is alive, then you're going to either have to switch to other channel or grind a different spot. So it's not exactly that reliable. Again, these are the 2 screenshots if anyone actually wants to see them. So moving on this rotation I grinded exactly 25 minutes, and in this time, if I reduce again the experience that is normally at 134% back to 100%, I made 0.019% experience. So in terms of pure experience, this spot clearly isn't as good as the first one. Now this spot actually has 2 different elite monsters, so in terms of money it might be a little bit better, but in terms of experience, which is what I'm actually testing, it's not as good as the first one. Another thing to mention about this spot is that again it is pretty small, at least for people at my gear level, so I had to use again 2 more groups from the stairs in order to actually make them spawn at a pretty decent rate, I suppose, because when I got back to the beginning of the rotation, they were still not fully respawned yet. So if you can grind faster than me, then this spot is clearly not that good. But of course, if you have a lower level gear or you simply grind slower than me, then this spot is good enough. Moving on to the third and last rotation, this one basically combines the first and second one. It has the biggest group of monsters from the first rotation and the entire second rotation. Some advantages on this rotation are that you have 3 elite monsters, so it actually might be a little bit more profitable if you can find those alive, and that it has the biggest number of groups. So if you're fast enough that the other 2 rotations are not enough, then this is the one you're going to have to do. Now, in terms of experience, I only got to grind here exactly 15 minutes. That is because since this rotation is so big, then if anyone else wants to come here to grind, then they are pretty much going to start to steal your monsters. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I only grinded here 15 minutes. And if I reduce the experience back to 100%, I got a total of 0.020 or almost 21% experience per minute. So comparing this to the first rotation, again, it's not as good. It's pretty close, but it's not as good. I would say that this is because of the time that I spent to move from one group to another. As a wizard, I don't exactly move that fast between groups, so this might be the reason why I got less experience. So in the end, as a conclusion, these are the experience values per hour for each of the 3 rotations, and now I could just compare them to my other videos, but since I did this one on a level 58 and I don't yet know the difference between level 58 and 59, I'm not going to do that. But just as a side note, I can show what the experience I got on my 60 ranger and what I got on my 58 wizard on the exact same rotation here at Cadry Ruins. My opinion about this place is that it's pretty okay to grind here if it's not populated, because it has less experience than other areas and it clearly doesn't have that many rotations. So as soon as this place gets populated, then it really isn't worth to come here to grind for pure experience. Also, since here I can't one-shot the small monsters like I can do at pirates and bandits, then it might even be better experience if I get more attack power. But already 200 attack power is pretty high, and I don't think anyone who has more will even bother to come here. They will probably go to other places. So I hope this video was somewhat helpful to you, and if you have any questions or details that I missed, then don't forget to leave a comment below and I will make sure to answer the question, because usually I just answer them. So see you next time.